Just kind of reflecting on that one plot point from last episode with Trucy. I probably overreacted to that a bit, and I apologize for that. It's the joke reason is I forget whose game I'm playing, but honestly, it's there's some dissonance always in like if that whole scene was took place with some completely original character, blank slate sort of thing. That'd be a really heartwarming scene, all in all. There's something jarring about it being Trucy, of all people. Always been happy-go-lucky, save for the few instances the canon gives her some reflection on her family and the like. That just the dissonance got to me a bit too much, but it's softened on it. It was a touching, heartwarming scene overall, I think. So what was going on here now? Apollo made a phone call. Damn. Guess it was a bit of a long shot, hoping she'd make it that fast. I did ask for a lot after all. So how'd the two of you actually exactly meet? You and Adair, I mean. She knows you well enough to refer to you as Apollo. And she knows Marston well enough to refer to him as Nathaniel. Interesting coincidence, wouldn't you say? And that's putting aside that she was also connected to the victim, apparently. We'd met once before, years ago. She remembered my name and asked me to take her friend's case. That's all there is to it. Really? You know, I don't like flat-out lying to you, Apollo. So why do you do that to me? Because I don't think this is something you should get involved in. All the more reason I'd want to, you know? If you want me to understand whatever it is you're trying to do here, don't you think you're going about it the wrong way? I know what I'm doing. Are you sure about that? Press X to doubt. That's what we all say. How do we know we're doing the right thing? And we're back. Mr. Edgeworth, I want you to know that the packed lunch I found in the prosecutor's lobby was delicious. It's a shame nobody bothered to put their name on it or anything. Oh well, guess the order will just have to be more careful when he leaves for a bathroom break. This judge is an asshole. Anyway, I hope you managed to prepare the defendant. Yes, the defendant is more than ready to take the stand. However, before that, the prosecution has a question for the defense. Uh-oh. Of course you do. You have presented your theory to this court. A theory which, while unlikely, does not contradict the evidence presented so far. Yet it may or may not contradict the defendant's own claim. Don't see why would it. Admitting to it being wrong would be a death wish. But what if it isn't? Oh, you're gonna make a plea bargain or something? Then I suppose I'm wrong. And back exactly where you began. When you began with this trial being almost handed over to the jury. If I don't come with an alternative explanation, it's all over. You will be given a chance. A single chance to cross-examine Mr. Marston's testimony. If you do not bring up something worth continuing this trial over, in other words, something that actually shows the possibility that your client is in fact innocent, I will end the cross-examination myself and have the defendant taken off the stand. After which the trial will be handed to the jury. Those are the conditions. Conditions? Of calling the defendant to the stand, of course. After all, once his testimony is heard, the prosecution's case will be complete. If you cannot counter it, then the trial has no reason to go on. Not that it has a reason now, but There's also an alternative, naturally. You refuse. In that scenario, I will rest my case. I imagine you will do the same. At that point, you will still technically have your explanation, not contradicted by testimony. Your chances of winning still exist. A rather interesting offer. Is that one of the benefits of the jury system, right? People themselves get to decide between right and wrong, not influenced by the burden of proof or a strict code other than their own moral one. I see. One thing I do like about the portrayal of Edgeworth is... I feel like if they ever had done a true Apollo Justice sequel, this would have been a good way to give it some oomph. Obviously, it would be taking place in the juris system, and you could have like the running thread of the game being: is the juris system flawed in the other direction? That the normal 3-day system was flawed in. So it's the jury system being flawed in its own way, so the core of the game would have been trying to find some kind of balance in that sense. Missed chances. Oh well. So the defendant does deny Mr. Justice's theory. And by ending this trial here, Mr. Justice's chances of winning are drastically go up. He has a 133 2/3% chance. Improbable, but up nevertheless. Why did it feel like the song got louder the second loop? Thank you. Don't worry, Mr. Edgeworth. Because I do accept those conditions. I'm shocked. Shook. I told you already, my client is innocent. One man's word doesn't equate to the truth. If he denies my theory, I'll find the key to solving this case. You believe something like that in his testimony exists? You're working under the assumption I intentionally kept him away from you, in order to preserve my own case. But what if you're wrong in that regard as well? There's no such thing as what ifs, Mr. Edgeworth. Bring the man to the stand. Well, alright then. And then we'll establish what is. Boom. Interesting. You didn't even consider my offer. It would be hilarious if this was just the ending. Press everything in his testimony and nothing happens. Game over. We lose. All this emotional build-up for just... we lose. Why would I? I mean, I'm no sucker, Mr. Edgeworth. Sure, if I refused, my theory would have been foolproof. I would have showed just how insecure I was about it if I did call my client to confirm or deny it. So I'd be saying, I know it looks bad, but please believe me. That is also a good play by Edgeworth. If he makes the offer, and you say possibly both heads Edgeworth wins, tails Edgeworth wins. If he puts the defendant on the stand, he's already prepped him, so he knows he's going to deny the theory. And if he accepts the offer to not call the defendant and go to the jury, he wins as well for this exact reason. The defense doesn't have enough faith in their theory to call the defendant, but I'm not that desperate. Because you believe that your client believes he's guilty. I believe there are a lot of things wrong with this trial. One of them is leaving it open for doubt. And hey, there's always a chance you're bluffing. Oh? I'm not that much of a poker player, but to be honest, I don't do risks. I can attest to that. Like it or not, it's showdown time. Time to show your hand. Gladly, the prosecution calls the defendant and Nathaniel Marston to the stand. They get to see the man. Hey, yeah, there he is. Should have seen this one coming. Witness, please state your name and occupation. Okay, so that was Marston we read. Gee, after the first 50 times you mentioned it, really? Whatever. Nathaniel Marston. Detective Nathaniel Marston. Oh, that part probably won't be there for long. Oh, just Mr. Marston. Got it. Mr. Justice. Meet again at last. How's the girl? He's fine. She always was, really. Really? Well, that's good to hear. Gotta hand it to you. You've been running a pretty good show so far. But... it all ends with me, kid. How appropriate, wouldn't you say? Mr. Marston, we all know why you've been called to the stand, at least. Indeed we do. Then let's not keep the court waiting anymore. Your confession, if you will. You can't always get what you want. Ah, Ian Arts, that bastard. Guy actually had the nerve to send me an invitation to his party. To be perfectly honest with you, he should have seen this coming. Well, chances are he did. After we, the guests I mean, went our ways after the bastard never showed up. Figured I'd wait for the man in his study. I climbed in through the balcony from the outside. The room was dark as all hell. I can tell you, I didn't see anyone else standing there. Got into a corner and waited. I heard footsteps on the other side. I was focused on the door. Finally, it opened and Arts came through. Closed the door and I heard a click in the darkness. Also sounded like he set the chain. I didn't give him a chance to turn on the light. I lunged at the bastard. We ended up having a fist fight at the door before I managed to push him away. I had my gun on me, so I pulled it out. Before I could fire it, Arts got back on his feet and went right for me. Grabbed the gun and we ended up struggling over the damn thing. No one could say that during this I somehow misfired a bullet, but that's not the case. Pushed him away, yet again. Took my aim and pulled the trigger. I know there's no way that a sniper was around or anything. The sniper bullet would have caused Art's body to jerk in a very specific way. That didn't happen. It'd have to be one hell of a coincidence if it hit him just as I pulled the trigger. Anyway, after the shot, people came, saw the gun in my hand, I got knocked down and disarmed. And that's all she wrote. Jesus. That's some testimony, Mr. Marston. You wanted the truth, I gave you the truth. That you have. But wait. I thought you plead justified self-defense, Mr. Marston. Self-defense, but not in the justified kind. Art deserved what he got. If I could, I'd go and relieve the moment I killed him for all eternity. Mr. Marston, it was self-defense. I finally stood up and defended what I believed was right. Where the justice system failed, I chose to defend human values. Art had no right to get away from the hand of justice, and he didn't. Turns out the bastard was just flesh and bone. Go figure. At the end of the day, I offended my own conscience. Well, I regret nothing. As per our agreement, Justice, I trust you won't waste time. All the information that can be presented is presented to you. In other words, pressing won't do me much good here. You have one chance to find something doubtful in this confession. If you do not, I know. I got it the first time. Are you ready? Not really. Something wrong in that testimony. There has to be. Very well then. Commence your cross-examination, Mr. Justice. As you will. Oh God. I have an idea, but... I feel like this is the problem we have. Ah, good old 999 music. Anyway, let's present the gun here, because the gun only had Marston's fingerprints on it. Got him. I'm sorry, Mr. Marston. I'm sure you'd like to believe you killed Mr. Arts after what he'd done. What you've just told. Ah, God. Every time this theme gets me. Grating at me. It's impossible. I hate it. You say that you and the victim struggled over the gun. How interesting. Especially considering only your fingerprints are on it. It's possible that the defendant simply misremembered this detail. Actually, that's exactly my point here. The defendant happened to misremember a detail, then. How about misremembering that he killed the man in the first place? Misunderstand. What if the victim never actually grabbed the gun, but something like the victim's wrist? Would that also be considered as struggling over the gun? Yes. There's a very easy way of checking that. There is? Sure, you want to know if the victim grabbed the defendant's wrist? I don't know. What do we... I don't know the answer here. So I'm just gonna present his blood. And be wrong. With this. Are you sure, Mr. Justice? Is there a reason I shouldn't be? Doesn't exactly scream explanatory to me. Or to me. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, there's actually two ways of checking that fact. The way I found was just presenting Marston's profile. Both are achieved through Mr. Marston. Mr. Marston, what exactly did you mean when you say we struggled over the gun? Hey, grab the barrel of the gun. Yeah. Now, you may not believe Mr. Marston's word here. Why should you? So you can just check for fingerprints around his sleeves. Sleeves? After all, if he didn't go for the gun, then Arts had to go for Mr. Marston's wrists. If he'd done that, he would have touched Mr. Marston's sleeves. Forgetting that we don't have any of Mr. Art's fingerprints in our databases. What would we compare them to? The fact that someone else's fingerprints were on Mr. Marston's sleeves would be enough. For me to concede that the struggle was never around the actual gun. But since my client already confirmed that it was around the gun, that won't be necessary. Fair enough. What if the victim was wearing gloves? They also get to represent Arts' body. Okay, that worked. Just ask the person that got to take a close look at the body. Detective Mary Adair. Way ahead of you, Mr. Justice. Ah! How did she understand so fast? I can tell you right now. I had an extremely good look at the body. There were no gloves in those hands. Mary. And there you have it. The defendant claims one, but the evidence says otherwise. In other words, it contradicts the facts the prosecution worked so hard to establish. And, when you think about it that way, the defendant's confession cannot be fully trusted. It doesn't stop there. That confession is literally one of the crutches holding the prosecution's claims. Their case can't be viewed as perfect either.
Objection!
Apollo, you're an idiot. Well played, Justice. Well played indeed. As always, you managed to say so much, and accomplish so little, and change so little. Okay. Think a single little problem can disprove an entire confession. How naive, Justice. You seem to have forgotten about the important things. 1, there's still no possibility of a second culprit. 2, an even bigger fact. This murder was premeditated from the very beginning. What exactly does your gun struggle problem here actually change? And here we go. At this point on, I need to be extremely careful how I go on about doing this. Edward doesn't realize it, but as long as I keep this trial going long enough, then I can force him into a checkmate. He thinks he can stop me this time by simply dismissing it. He's got another thing coming. You can claim whatever you wish as far as I'm concerned, but unless you confirm it with facts or evidence, here, in this room, it means nothing. Be clear, I never claimed my case was perfect. Given the facts, it is the only logical conclusion. You're only working with the facts you want to work with. Then by all means, present your own. Don't do so working under the assumption that your word is law. You're making assumptions and stretches simply because they work. And frankly, I've had enough of that. Should be a logical chain of events supported by evidence or get lost. Yeah. I think you've annoyed him somehow. Yeah, I don't blame him. Any suggestions? To be honest, I've never quite seen him like that. And again, we haven't spoken in a while now. Well, at least not since the jury system came into full power. He obviously has issues with it. Change never makes anyone happy. Still. Apologies for yelling, Your Honor. Justice, I'm waiting. Oh, this is boss music. What is that supposed to mean? Two of them never struggled for the gun, then at least one event must have happened differently from how the defendant remembers it. Hence, you cannot claim it as accurate. No, but almost all of it matches with the facts. We've actually disproven nothing so far. Contradiction can easily be explained as a small detail that got mixed up in your client's head. If you would recall, the defendant was described as out of it by the witnesses. In an adrenaline rush, we simply assume and mistake things for something they aren't. Perhaps the victim used something to defend himself against the gun. That way, it's only logical there would have been no other fingerprints. The doctors, Mr. Marston, probably mistook it as the victim grabbing onto the gun. What exactly would that something have been? The victim used to be a police officer. Perhaps he simply chose to use his feet. What? The sudden force on the gun, the defendant would have assumed Mr. Arts grabbed it. The later shock would make him believe that the moment lasted longer, hence a struggle. Do you have anything to actually prove that? It's a logical assumption. No, it doesn't really make sense. Do you have an alternative explanation? After all, your version of events has to explain how your client got everything he apparently did. Horribly, horribly wrong. And no simple he was knocked out won't do here. You suggest hypnotism, I'll throw you out the door myself. There goes that idea. There's no event that could have happened that would have caused the defendant to imagine. He got into the room, waited, struggled with and shot the victim. Jesus Christ, there's just one statement. It's become obvious that... Which are? Patience, justice, I'm getting them. Are you really, though? How do I know there's something after the statement? Oh, come on. Thank you for not acknowledging that. Actually... From the way Mr. Marston testified, he never actually eliminated the possibility that the killer walked into the room after him. So he could have been knocked out during that struggle. And where in that story is there a time when the defendant could have been knocked out? The story flows and is connected until the very moment of the shooting. Memory gap consisting of minutes is more than a stretch, if you ask me. And me. No one asked you, Judge. Fuck off. Thank you, Your Honor. We might have been in darkness, but Mr. Marston wasn't completely blind. Might have expected an adrenaline rush, but... I should have been aware that he was conscious through the entire process. Stop talking for him. Mr. Marston, are you sure that everything truly happened the way you remember it? Sorry, Mr. Justice. I'm sure of what happened. Arts and I were the only ones walking around that room. I'm sure I would have remembered if something hit me on the back of my head, you know? Some people just don't want to be proven innocent, I guess. I merely speak the truth. Has to hurt at least one side of this courtroom. What does that have to do with anything? Something the prosecution never got a chance to bring up properly. Looking back on it, it's something he would have had an issue with, so it was probably for the best. Allow me to make this perfectly clear. Mr. Marston came to the victim's mansion. Nothing short of murder on his mind. That much you could have learned from Mr. Marston himself just a few moments ago. Doesn't really help your case, no matter how you look at it. Say that there was another culprit. That he or she was somehow in the room through means X. Why wouldn't they have just let the defendant kill the victim? Furthermore, your client is guilty of attempted murder, if nothing else. Even that much should strengthen the idea that he is, in fact, the killer here. Just take the murder weapon, for instance. No matter what the defense might suggest, it is the murder weapon. It belongs to the defendant. It's the gun which was issued to him by the police department, in fact. A police gun? Yeah. It's mine. I brought it there. Why press on? The boy continues to incriminate himself. Alright, interesting. The point I'm trying to make here is that the defendant came there with only one thing on his mind. He came with the intention of killing Mr. Arts. He had a plan. He waited to strike when he was alone and shot him. Almost like a predator. The only thing he failed to do was get away with it. Now tell me, being the master of common sense, Justice, if someone who comes with the intention of murder was in the same room as the man he wanted to kill, gives his version of events in which he kills the victim, and finally has evidence and witnesses that condemn him on their own, is it not common sense to conclude that he's the culprit here? So you have to pardon me while I ask you. Everything! I think. I'm sorry, what was that, Justice? Nothing. Darn it. I can't let him just shove this to the side. There's really no way I can use this? Still waiting. Mr. Justice. It's not over yet. I look hopeless, but I'm not gonna give up over something like this. Let's keep thinking, Justice. I can't build on that issue with the gun, but maybe I can expose another hole in this case. Hey, at least I'm not limited to one chance anymore. Wonder. False. Huge problem in your argument, Mr. Edgeworth. Is that so? I'm afraid I don't quite see it. Neither do I. I think I might just do everyone else's job for them. Alright, fair enough. What if we... I don't know what this would do, but it apparently works. Balcony. The only thing he failed to do was get away with it. A brilliant way of putting it. You know, it's been bothering me for a while now. Why didn't he just run away? Excuse me. I think you managed to hear me just fine, actually. Let's review the facts, shall we? According to you, my client came to the mansion with the intention of murder. The door to the study was locked. According to you as well, he was the only killer in the room. Hence, according to you, his state of consciousness was at no point actually affected. Hence, there's no logical reason for any part of his story to be off, so to speak. Is that correct? In short, yes. Now you're getting it. He was in a perfect state of mind, which he needed to be in order for his confession to be valid. Why didn't he just leave through the balcony? Why would he intentionally allow himself to be caught? Wait. You're forgetting that when the door was broken down, the witness described him as... out of it? Yeah, I remember. But now I have a question about it. All my client had was an adrenaline rush, and why was he out of it in the first place? His common sense still should have still worked. Okay, that... It wasn't a contradiction. It wasn't a solution you could pull from the statement itself. Like, the bit about not getting away with it came up when you pressed it. So, Maybe you had to press that first. I don't know if that was a requirement, or just that's your clue to the solution. Okay. Makes a bit more sense now. Especially when he heard voices on the other side of the door. All the while, again, the balcony door was wide open. He could have just left the balcony and joined the others like nothing happened. He'd killed someone at that point. Human beings will act differently to certain situations, in ways that aren't expected. Perhaps in that short time, he had to come to terms with what he'd done. I just hear perhaps? Mr. Edgeworth, this is a court of law. Unless you got a psychology major with that cravat. I suggest you find a way to back that statement up with evidence or get... actually. But hey, you want to talk psychology? Alright, the defendant is a detective. Death is in the job description. I can't imagine he'd be shocked over seeing a dead body. I mean, how do you know he never shot anyone on duty? Psychology major with that cravat. But there's more. My client was so determined to get Mr. Arndt. I really hated him that much to kill him, as suggested in the invitation. He can't really be all that surprised when the person he was planning to kill ends up killed. Wow, you're getting really pumped up about this. I've had enough of going around in circles. Yeah, me too. Now it's my turn to strike. According to you, Mr. Edgeworth, my client would need to be the dumbest criminal of all time. Your client's also trying to say something. Look, you're not really... So what is it you're suggesting here, Mr. Justice? What I'm suggesting is simple. The time of the murder and the time of the events described in his confession, my client... Now you're just taking the piss. Not of sound mind. Being impersonated by an evil clone. What's tap dancing? You know what? Out of spite, I'm gonna pick this one. Okay. That's just the right one. Was tap dancing? What does that have to do with anything? Who's dancing? On tap. Who's tap? I know, right? I feel like this is a reference to something I will never understand. Pretty much, yeah. Don't take too kindly to references around here, thank you. Okay, not of sound mind. Was not of sound mind. Your Honor, this confession cannot be accepted. What exactly are you saying? That he was drugged. Basically? Yeah, something like that. Perhaps sometime during the night. Perhaps even when he got into the room. Doesn't matter. The point is, we can't trust his version of events. Not only does a certain part of it contradict the evidence. The fact is, for a rational thinking man, his actions are completely illogical.
Objection!
Would you be so kind as to let me speak for just 2 seconds here? A shot in the dark. Okay. Firstly, I'll maintain that Arts and I struggled over the gun. Can't explain the fingerprint issue, though. There's another part of the story here that I haven't mentioned. After I pushed him away, I went backwards and ended up tripping over something hitting my head. Arts, meanwhile, headed to the balcony. Losing consciousness, but I still aimed my gun and fired at him. Next thing I saw was him suddenly stopping, falling right back into the room again. That's when I blacked out. I ended up waking up at the sound of loud voices. That explains the out of it. That's why I never had the chance to get away. Wasn't drugged. I don't suffer from a disease of any kind. Well, look, my skull's kind of cracked. That's why I managed to go out so easily in the first place. That's all there is to it. Just fell over and hit my head. Still got him, though. Are you certain you actually tripped on something? It could have been the drug kicking in. Apollo.
Objection!
Actually, there's a reason I suggested the possibility of Mr. Marston being drugged. You see, a drug test was conducted on the defendant. It was absolutely clean. Roll with it, Apollo. Not again! Roll with it. This is new fucking testimony. Sisyphus would be proud, I think. Isn't that interesting? Defense wishes to cross-examine the defendant, Your Honor. No, not slipping away from me that easily. This is literally a hole that's opening up, which could be used to support your case, Apollo. Don't freak it. Don't panic. I will bring her to the stand. Alright, here we go. Well, there must be a logical explanation. Assuming the defendant is indeed being accurate. Which I am. And then two hands grab the barrel of the thing. So why aren't there any fingerprints on the actual gun? I don't know. I can't explain it. That's not the point. Mr. Edgeworth said this would break the rest of my confession. One inconsistency. It's just one inconsistency, kid. Unless you can show the court that it somehow has a bigger effect on the proceedings. I said, though, that's not the point I'm trying to make here. Which is... Why aren't you impatient? Well, I mean, wait. Why didn't you mention this information in the first place? Didn't think it was relevant. Blacked out! Of course it's relevant! Not relevant enough to prove or disprove my guilt. Facts haven't changed. Yeah, it seems really convenient to just leave out. Well, although I suppose it would have been more convenient if Edgeworth left it out. And Edgeworth definitely didn't know, because he mentioned there not being any gaps for him to lose consciousness. So I'm kind of surprised that Edgeworth didn't freak out more at hearing this. It's like the reactions we got from this were completely opposite. Edgeworth just played it cool, and Apollo freaked out. When this benefits Apollo's case big time. If he fled towards the balcony was open. The whole part of there not being another bullet hole where Marston's bullet could have hit. Our whole theory about that was it went out the balcony instead of lodging into a wall somewhere. And that was the chance to prove that he didn't shoot him. And it's literally right here. I'm the one who usually has the worst memory. I stand behind everything I've said so far. I shot and killed Arts. That's the truth. Sorry, Mr. Justice. That's just the way things are. Is it, though? The issue here is that I'm not sure if I can trust your version of events, Mr. Marston. Who am I kidding? I don't trust your version of events. No matter what some people here might believe, the one thing I know for sure is that you are innocent. I just need to find out how exactly the culprit pulled off his trick. This is the vital information you didn't mention. Right. So I'm mentioning it now. Back when I was in patrol, I got hurt. Bad. My skull got partially cracked on the back. It still is. Large enough pressure on it would cause me to slowly lose consciousness. That's exactly what happened. So, you didn't instantly lose consciousness. What'd I just say? Just checking. Wait, you said you tripped over something? Well, I think so, at least. I just lost my footing, though. I managed to finally get Arts off me. I must have lost my balance. However, If someone were to hit you on the back of the head, in the weak spot, so to speak, I would have still known. Actually, if it had happened like that, I would have certainly known. It hurts like hell when I even so just give it a light tap. Just making sure. We don't want anyone getting any ideas, do we? I'm glad to see our client is a Centauran. What did the victim do then? He was trying to get away. You don't say. Well, I mean, I do say. Don't you think it's a bit strange? He was an ex-police officer and had you on the ground. He could have disarmed you or called for help or something. Instead, he just ran. Being a police officer doesn't make you any less human. From everything we've heard of Eonards, does paranoid serve to describe him well. He was the kind of man who wanted to avoid danger rather than face it. I'm not sure you can claim that with certainty. Perhaps not. That's just as strong as he should have logically fought back. Humans are beings of instinct. And like the most dangerous of animals, they always know how to react to one thing, without fail. Fear. Hell, even if he'd called for help, he was still surrounded by people that hated him. Who knows? If he'd gone down that route, all of us would have killed him and gotten away with it. Granted, the brother would need to be taken care of as well, but I'm not sure I like the way your mind works there, defendant. Yeah, I'm a murderer no matter how you look at it. Might as well go all out, no? What did you aim? What kind of a question is that? Just heard him. He was losing consciousness. How on earth can you expect him to remember something like that? Left. Excuse me? I aim left. I remember since one of the balcony doors was sort of blocking my view on the right. Mind you, I could have still shot in that direction, but I didn't want to risk missing. Just when losing consciousness, you remember the strangest things. Because my brain decided to give up doesn't mean I couldn't still use it. Left, huh? Thought he could just turn his back and run away again, but not this time. What if he didn't hit him? He just told you he just told you it hit him. Not true. All he said was that the victim suddenly fell down into the room. Yeah, basically clearly happened to lose balance too. The moment I fired my gun, no less. Hey, it's possible. One. Like to say that the gunshot wound was the result of natural causes. No. Can we also point out that he specifically said that there was no sign of him getting hit by a sniper bullet? And there's no processing of that even with this changed testimony. Like, no acknowledgement of that fact. I'd like to believe some resemblance of common sense is left in that head of yours. You sort of seem to be bringing that up a lot. Yes, I know it is the fourth term to you at this point, but I must stress the fact that common sense is really what defines this case. Yet Mr. Justice is keen to defy it on every step of the way. Me? A suspiciously disappearing body, anyone? Defendant that's confessing Oh. You're above these petty arguments, Edgeworth. Come on. How long can you ignore the obvious, Justice? That was the two other guests and the butler. Yeah. Put down the door just as I was standing up, actually. So, you weren't unconscious for long? Evidently, no. Isn't it possible you were out for longer than you believe? I'm afraid I don't follow. Wait, what if you didn't actually kill the victim? What What if you missed, blacked out, and the real killer showed up and finished the victim off? And just said the victim tumbled down the moment he fired his gun. What if it wasn't fatal? They were saying the defendant did shoot the victim. I suppose it would have been possible. But Detective Adair examined the body and found only one bullet hole. The defendant's bullet hit the victim. That's where it would have gone. Ergo, you actually just said the defendant killed the victim. Oh my god. Can we stop? You're working under the assumption that it's the gunshot that killed him. Without an autopsy report, you can't possibly know. Something like poison, essentially. Essentially, yes. Any other murder method would work. Yes, sure, let's keep playing guessing games. I have a bigger problem. The victim went into the room. Both heard a gunshot soon afterwards. Guests gathered in a matter of seconds. According to the defendant, it was when he heard their voices that he woke up. Hence, logically, he was out for a matter of seconds as well. Due to the security footage, the culprit had to have been one of the people around the door. In other words, the culprit would need to enter the room after the defendant was out, kill the victim, go out the balcony and into the mansion again to the study. Or the defendant couldn't have been out for a longer period of time. And according to you, the culprit would need to move at the speed of light, all without leaving a single trace of his presence. Here's a point, you had to give him that much. It's a bit unrealistic. Not to mention the plan. Would have revolved around the killer taking advantage of Mr. Marston, going unconscious. I think he had no guarantee it was actually going to happen. Or when, for that matter. There's nobody else in the room. I don't know, you could have planned for culprit to try and run, follow Marston in, stay on the balcony, kill him when he tries to run onto the balcony. Doesn't seem that ridiculous. The culprit is working independently from Mr. Marston. Then surely he wouldn't have gone into a room. He just heard a gunshot come from. Not looking too good, gotta say. At least we're moving forward. I don't think that Mr. Marston is lying to us. He's mistaken about something. He has to be. Well... If we recall, he was shot from the front. My thought was that this lined up with the, his shot missing and going out into the balcony door and outside without making a bullet hole. But this is another point. So let's do that.
Objection!
Awesome. Are you ready, Mr. Marston? Ready? Because I'd like to prove you innocent now, if you don't mind. According to you, Freedom ran towards the balcony, correct? Correct. His back turned. Unless he got a sudden urge to run in reverse or something. And just to confirm, you aimed and fired your gun to the left, is that right? Yeah, that's what I said. Well, congratulations, Mr. Marston. You just said that you couldn't have possibly killed the victim. What? Wait. No. Ladies and gentlemen of this court, as you've just heard, the defendant claims that he shot at the victim towards the left. Considering the victim had been facing away from him at the time, where would the bullet have been? Looking for the front of the victim. The right side of his body. Yet where did the guest describe the hole being? That's right, the left side. Oh. That's the completely wrong reason. Was he shot in the back? No, he shot in the stomach area. Don't even try it. There's no way the defendant was mistaken about this. He managed to remember something he shouldn't have in the first place. He even gave a reason as to why he shot towards the left. Don't even think about suggesting the defendant is maybe lying. There's absolutely no reason to. Unless you're willing to suggest that all of his confession is a lie as well. Yes, I'm aware there's a possibility that the victim turned towards my client at the last possible second. That's impossible. If that were the case, the victim's position doesn't match. The bullet had sent him backwards, his body would have ended up on the balcony. It was found inside the room. Not to mention the fact that Mr. Marston just stated he saw the victim go back into the study. What if the bullet sent him forwards? Then he would have been found on his stomach instead of his back, Mr. Edgeworth. Naturally, you can suggest someone had moved him after his death, but the defendant was out at the time, remember? Oh, and since you also passionately claimed that there was nobody else at the scene... What's that? The defendant wasn't actually out. Mr. Edgeworth, this just puts more holes into his airtight confession. And when should we return to my previous point as to why he didn't just run away? That's putting aside why he would turn the victim on his back in the first place. I guess even Sisyphus had to reach the top eventually. So there's only one logical conclusion to be made here. The defendant's bullet never hit the victim at all. Instead, it just went through the balcony into the abyss. Mr. Arch was killed by another shot. Order. Considering the fact that the gun Mr. Marston was holding at the time of his own shot was fired only once, it couldn't have come from him. Game, set, and match. So, we're left with only one possibility as to where the true culprit could have been.
Hold it!
Are you seriously going to suggest that a sniper was responsible for the victim's death after all? This is it. This is the chance I've been waiting for. Finally. Finally I can set my plan into motion. No. The victim wasn't killed by a sniper. The truth is, the culprit wasn't on the other side of the abyss. What? Just a few moments ago you said. I know what I said, Your Honor. However, the true culprit of this crime was one of the guests at the Twisted Party. What? Justice, have you gone completely mad? It's actually going to concede that the culprit might have been an assassin. But then, the true culprit would have gotten away. How could you possibly know that? Because we're missing the bigger picture. This new information, everything changes. At this point where it's more than possible for a person inside the mansion to have done this. Impossible! What could you have possibly learned that could change that much? The victim ran towards the balcony? Think about the natural chain of events here. The victim headed for the balcony. The defendant's shot missed. Then logically, the victim must have made it into the actual balcony. Logical enough. Yet Mr. Arts is still dead. Why is that? Well, actually, your sniper theory would fit in here, as Mr. Edgeworth said. Please see how anyone from the mansion would necessarily be the culprit in this case. As I said, Your Honor, no sniper. Just an extremely cutting culprit. Let me illustrate the situation. We'll do that next time, as that will serve as a perfect recap for the episode.